I need to write this down while it's still fresh, while I can still remember exactly what happened. The police say I'm in shock, that my story doesn't make sense, but I know what I saw. I know what happened out there on Route 47. It started 3 nights ago. I was driving back from my sister's place in northern Wisconsin, trying to beat the storm that had been forecast all week. The weatherman said it would be the worst blizzard in 20 years, but I figured I had time. I'd driven through plenty of bad weather before. I should have stayed another night. By the time I hit Route 47, the snow was coming down so hard I could barely see 10 feet ahead. The road was empty. No other cars, no lights, nothing but white. My phone had lost signal about 20 miles back, and the radio was just static. I kept driving because what else could I do? Stopping on the shoulder in a whiteout seemed more dangerous than pushing forward. That's when I saw the truck. It was an old pickup, dark blue or maybe black, sitting sideways across both lanes. The driver's door was open. I slammed on my brakes and felt my car slide on the ice, spinning almost 90 degrees before I managed to stop maybe 30 feet away. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the wheel. I sat there for a minute, just breathing, watching the snow blow through the truck's open door. Nobody got out. Nobody moved. I should have turned around, should have backed up and found another route, even if it meant adding hours to my drive. But something about that open door bothered me. What if someone was hurt? What if they'd gone off the road trying to avoid an animal and now they were hypothermic, dying in a ditch somewhere? I grabbed my flashlight and got out. The wind hit me like a fist, so cold it burned. I had to lean into it just to stay upright as I walked toward the truck. "Hello?" I called out. "Anyone here?" Nothing. Just the howl of the wind. When I reached the truck, I shined my light inside. The keys were still in the ignition. A coffee cup sat in the center console, still steaming. The radio was on, just static like mine. But no driver, no blood, no signs of struggle. I looked around, sweeping my flashlight across the road and the ditches on either side. Nothing. The snow was already filling in any footprints that might have been there. That's when I noticed something weird. There was a phone on the passenger seat. The screen was on, showing a text conversation. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The last message, sent just 3 minutes ago, said, "Don't get out of your car." I felt ice in my stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. I started backing towards my car, keeping the flashlight moving, trying to see everywhere at once. The snow made it impossible. Shapes seemed to move in the white, but when I'd point the light at them, there'd be nothing. Then, I heard it. Footsteps, crunching in the snow, coming from behind me. I spun around, but the beam of my flashlight only showed empty road and falling snow. The footsteps stopped. I ran, slipped on the ice, caught myself, kept going. When I reached my car, I jumped in and locked the doors. My hands were so numb I could barely turn the key, but the engine started. I threw it in reverse and started backing up. That's when something stepped in front of my headlights. It was a person. At least it looked like a person at first. Standing in the middle of the road, perfectly still despite the wind, wearing what looked like hunting clothes. But something was wrong. The way they stood was too rigid, too perfect, and they were staring right at me with eyes that reflected the light like an animal's. I kept backing up, and they started walking towards me. Not fast, just a steady, purposeful walk. Their movements were off somehow, too smooth, like they were gliding across the ice. I finally got turned around and floored it. The car fishtailed, nearly sending me into the ditch, but I managed to keep control. I looked in the rearview mirror. The person was running now, impossibly fast, faster than anyone should be able to move on ice.
They were gaining on me. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor. My car wasn't meant for this. It's a little 4-cylinder compact, but I got it up to 70, then 75. The speedometer kept climbing. The road was basically a skating rink, but I didn't slow down, couldn't slow down. When I finally hit a clear patch and looked back, they were gone. The road behind me was empty. I drove for another hour before I found a gas station with its lights on. Called 911, told them everything. They sent a state trooper to the location I described. They found the truck, keys in the ignition, coffee still warm, but no phone, no text messages, no footprints around the vehicle except mine. The truck had been reported stolen 2 days ago from a rest stop 40 miles north. The owner said he'd just gone inside to use the bathroom. When he came back out, the truck was gone. The police keep asking me about the person I saw. They want a description, height, weight, any identifying features, but I can't tell them what I really saw, that the person's movements were wrong, that their eyes reflected light, that they moved across ice like it was dry pavement. Because if I tell them that, they'll think I'm crazy. But I know what I saw, and I know one thing for certain. Someone is using that stolen truck to make people stop on Route 47. And whatever's out there waiting for them isn't human. I'm never driving that road again.
I never believed my dad when he told me about the winter of '98. Not until last month when I found myself parked at the exact same boat launch he'd described, staring out at the frozen expanse of Lake Wendigo. My dad used to ice fish up here in northern Minnesota every January. He'd go with his buddy Rick, and they'd spend entire weekends in a shanty drinking grain belt and lying about the size of their catches. But after that winter, Dad never went back. He sold all his gear at a yard sale and refused to talk about it. The one time I pushed him, when I was maybe 15, he just looked at me with these hollow eyes and said, "Some things aren't meant to be pulled up through the ice, Danny." He died last year. Heart attack. Sudden and brutal. When I was cleaning out his house, I found a lockbox in his closet. Inside was a VHS tape labeled 1/1798 and a water-damaged journal. The tape was corrupted, unplayable, but the journal, that's what brought me here. The entries started normal enough. Dad wrote about the fishing, the cold, Rick's terrible jokes. Then on January 15th, the tone shifted. They'd found an abandoned shanty about a quarter-mile from their usual spot. The door was open, equipment still inside, but no sign of the owner. Rick wanted to report it, but Dad convinced him to check it out first. Inside, they found something weird. A hole in the ice, maybe 3 feet across, with a hand crank auger lying beside it. But the hole was too big for any auger. Dad wrote that the edges looked melted, smooth as glass, and the water beneath, he said it was perfectly still, not frozen despite the sub-zero temps, but not moving either, like someone had poured black resin into the lake. They should have left then, but Rick, being Rick, dropped a line. The journal gets frantic after that. Dad's handwriting turns into a scrawl. He wrote that something took Rick's bait immediately, a pull so strong it nearly yanked the rod from his hands. They both grabbed it, trying to reel it in. Whatever was down there was huge, and it was fighting. For 20 minutes they battled this thing, and then just as suddenly as it started, the tension released. The line came up empty. No bait, no hook. The line itself was severed clean, like someone had taken scissors to it. But that's not what scared them. It was what came up a minute later. A hand. Blue-white and frozen solid, fingers curled like claws. It bumped against the edge of the hole and just floated there. Rick screamed. Dad dropped the rod, and then the hand sank back down, pulled by something they couldn't see. They ran, left everything in that shanty and never looked back. The last entry in the journal was dated January 17th, 2 days later. Dad wrote that he'd been having dreams. In them,
He was back at the hole, and Rick was there too. But Rick was wrong somehow. His skin was too pale, his lips blue, and when he smiled, his teeth were coated in ice. Rick kept saying the same thing over and over. You should have pulled harder. The real Rick disappeared on January 18th. His truck was found at the boat launch, keys in the ignition, engine running. They searched the lake but never found a body. The official report said he probably fell through thin ice while walking out to check on his shanty. But Dad knew better. And now, so do I. Because I'm sitting in my truck right now, and I can see someone out on the ice. He's standing next to a shanty, the same one from Dad's journal, I'm sure of it. I can see the orange stripe along the roof, exactly as Dad described. The man is waving at me, beckoning me to come out. It's been 27 years since Rick disappeared, but from here, even through the February dusk, I can see that the man on the ice is wearing a faded twins cap and a green Carhartt jacket. Rick's jacket. Dad pointed it out in an old photo once. I know I should drive away. I know that's what Dad would want. But my hand is already on the door handle, and I can feel this pull, not physical, but something deeper, like a hook buried in my chest tugging me forward. The man is walking toward the shore now, toward me. He's getting closer, and I can almost make out his face. Part of me is terrified, but another part, a part that sounds like Dad's voice, is whispering that I need to know, I need to see. I'm going to get out of the truck. I'm going to walk out on the ice, and I'm going to find out what's in that shanty, what's down in that hole. If I don't update this post in the next few hours, tell the sheriff to check Lake Wendigo. Tell them to bring cutting equipment. Tell them not to listen if they hear someone calling their name from beneath the ice. And whatever you do, if you ever find yourself ice fishing in Minnesota and you see an abandoned shanty with an orange stripe, don't go inside. Don't look in the hole. Some things aren't meant to be pulled up through the ice.
I'm a 911 dispatcher in Burlington, Vermont. Been doing this job for 8 years. You hear everything. Domestic disputes, car accidents, people having the worst days of their lives. You learn to stay calm, follow protocol, keep people alive until help arrives. But there's one call I can't explain. February 14th, 2024, Valentine's Day. We got slammed with a blizzard that shut down half the state, 2 feet of snow in 6 hours. Nobody was going anywhere. Around 2 a.m., I got a call from a landline, rural address outside town up in the hills where people still have those old rotary phones and sketchy cell service. 911, what's your emergency? Silence, but not empty silence. I could hear breathing, slow and deliberate. Hello? This is 911. Can you hear me? A woman's voice, barely a whisper. They're saying I have to go outside. Ma'am, who's telling you that? The recording. It keeps playing. What recording? On my answering machine. It started an hour ago. Every 15 minutes, the same message. It says I need to go outside and make a snow angel in my front yard or they'll come in. I pulled up her address. Patricia Whitmore, age 67, lived alone. No history of mental health calls, no priors, normal senior citizen. Miss Whitmore, is someone in your house? No, just the recording. But I can see footprints outside, in my yard. Dozens of them. They're walking in circles around my house, but nobody's there. The footprints just appear in the snow. My supervisor was listening in now. Standard procedure for weird calls. He shook his head, probably drunk or confused. Ma'am, have you been drinking tonight? I don't drink. Please, you have to send someone. The message just played again. It says I have 20 minutes left. 20 minutes until what? Until they stop asking nicely. I dispatched a unit, but the roads were a nightmare.
Officer Chen said it would take him at least 40 minutes to get up there, maybe longer. Miss Whitmore, I'm going to stay on the line with you, okay? Help is coming. Just stay inside and lock your doors. The doors are locked, all of them, but the footprints are getting closer. They're on my porch now. I heard it then, in the background, an answering machine, that old mechanical click and whir. A man's voice, monotone and emotionless. Patricia Whitmore, this is your final courtesy notice. Exit through your front door. Lie down in your front yard. Move your arms and legs to create a snow angel. Remain in position for 60 seconds. Failure to comply will result in involuntary extraction. The message ended with a beep. What the hell was that? My supervisor muttered. Miss Whitmore, do you recognize that voice? No, I've never heard it before. Oh God, something's wrong with my windows. What do you mean? The frost. It's forming patterns, like letters. It says, count down. I could hear her moving, her breath getting faster. Miss Whitmore, stay calm. Officer Chen is on his way. The footprints are at my door now. I can see them through the peephole, but there's nobody there. Just the impressions in the snow, like invisible people are standing on my porch. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. Knocking, slow, rhythmic knocking on her door. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, over and over. They're knocking, she whispered. How are they knocking if nobody's there? The knocking continued. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, over and over. Don't open the door. Whatever you do, don't. I'm not, but the handle is turning. I'm watching it turn. It's locked, but it's still turning. My supervisor grabbed another radio. Chen, how far out are you? 20 minutes, maybe 25. The knocking stopped. Silence on the line. Miss Whitmore? I heard the answering machine again. Click, whir. Same voice. Courtesy period has expired. Beginning involuntary extraction. Miss Whitmore, talk to me. The windows. Oh, Jesus. The windows are opening by themselves. All of them. I could hear wind howling through the phone, distant, like it was coming from another room. Get to a bathroom, lock yourself in, smallest room, no windows. I'm trying. The hallway is so cold. I can see my breath. Her voice cut off. The line stayed open, but she wasn't talking anymore. Just wind. Just that awful wind. Patricia! Patricia! 5 minutes later, the line went dead. Officer Chen arrived 37 minutes after the call started. Front door was locked from the inside. Windows were closed. No sign of forced entry. But every window in the house had frost on the inside glass, forming the same words over and over. Snow angel, snow angel, snow angel. Patricia Whitmore was gone. They found her 3 days later after the snow melted. She was in her front yard, lying on her back, arms and legs spread out. Perfect snow angel. The coroner said she'd been dead since that night. Hypothermia. But here's what they didn't put in the report. Her body temperature when they found her was 23 degrees Fahrenheit. She'd been frozen solid. But the snow around her had melted first, like she was generating heat, like she was warm. I pulled the 911 recording, listened to it a dozen times. The answering machine message is clear as day. I even had tech services analyze it. They said the voice isn't human. It's synthesized, but not with any software they recognize. And the audio file has properties that shouldn't exist. Frequencies outside normal range, patterns in the waveform that look almost like code.